Welcome back to another video, and today I will be showing you my recommendations for cool toned eyeshadow palettes. Another eyeshadow video, yay! Well, I like making this, so yeah, that's why we are having another one. So I think it was inspired from my last eyeshadow palette video, which focused very much on what seems to be a summer trend this summer, wore this golden bronzy warm-toned eyeshadow palette. So to balance that one out, I thought I would do a cool toned recommendation video if you're the kind of person that likes more cool toned eyeshadow. I'm a person, because I do have a cool rose undertone, I actually do also prefer the more cool toned eyeshadow look, but I also, because of the undertone I also, for example, have the limitations that if the palette is like too gray heavy, that it has cool tones that are pure like gray, like very gray, then it's also not something that fits me. So with that one, there's usually that it's a sort of cool toned but something pink or moreish leaning. That's usually sort of best suits me. But anyway, I think we will go through again this as sort of one go, because I don't think we have that many again like palettes all together. And for this one there are only like indie and luxury palettes. I didn't have any like purely cool tone palettes amongst my drugstore palettes, so only indie and sort of luxury palettes today. But let's get now to the palettes themselves. And these aren't particularly any like ranking order or anything. These are just like purely recommendations as all together. Okay, so let's get to it, and first let's go to the sort of luxury palettes, and here we have actually some smaller palettes, and then we have some bigger palettes. So first let's go to a palette that was a holiday palette last year. So this was the Lumiere Graphique Quint from Chanel, and this is how the palette looks like. Now looking at Aria. So this is something that I did discuss from the range of holiday palettes that I did accumulate at the end of last year. I think with this year I really have to like get a grip that I can't go and buy like every freaking holiday palette, because I think last Christmas I kinda overdid it in terms of buying like the Christmas palettes. But with this one, this is one of those like very simple, like quick one and done cool toned eyeshadow looks, and with this one, even though it has like one black here, it's an easy black to work with, which seems to be a characteristic of this sort of luxury, smaller luxury palettes, if they do have a black shade. This is something that I would, I don't think this is available anymore, but if you're looking for like something like this type, I do believe Chanel might have it's not a quint, but they might have a quad in their permanent line that's quite close to this one. And this, what I appreciate is the simplicity of it. This is one of those that palettes that if I want this sort of very cool toned sophisticated look, then I go for this one. Only satin and a bit of more shimmery shades in this one, so I don't think they're like, or is there actually that? No, it's, I was thinking that was the black shade matte, but no, these are all just purely satin and shimmer shades. But this is, I think, one of those like smaller cool toned palettes. If you're looking for something very simple, then if you have this, then dig out, because I do think that the looks are very pretty that you get with this one. Then a palette that I raved about last year and said that it was a palette that truly surprised me and got me into, I think we can now say that, collecting Dior Backstage palette, which yikes, that's issue for another video. So this is the Silver Essentials palette, and you all know that I praised this to death basically. This ranked very highly in my sort of luxury palettes, and even I think amongst my like altogether eyeshadow palette ranking, even though you would like think that considering some of the like, for example, indie palettes we will see later in this video, that I have something like quite many more exciting palettes in my collection. But with this one it was just the ease of work and how impactful these were, even though this is the sort of traditional like higher end brand like eyeshadow formula, and how flattering this sort of formula is to different kind of lid types. And if you especially like your gray and purple looks, this is an excellent palette if you're still able to get this. I think this was one of those that sold out quite quickly, but I do think that I have seen this still most of in our like Europe, like most in like my Dior retailers, and I think most like online stores that do sell Dior, at least in Europe. So this isn't something that has like disappeared completely. And I think honestly, if you've been just interested in the Backstage palettes, then this could be a very good palette to start with. Very beautiful, very easy to work with, and especially for the sort of purple and grey lovers. Then let's get to some of the more bigger palettes, and first a classic. So this is the ABH Sultry, and this is like, you can't get this anymore. This has been discontinued, but if you have this, I recently was at a birthday party, which was a 90s themed birthday party, so I did this sort of a 90s themed smoky eye kind of silver look with this one to the birthday party, and the formula has lasted, how should I say, relatively well. Mine is not as old as it could be, I've always said with this one. I got this when ABH relaunched it. It was during, I think, in the aftermath of the COVID, when the makeup market was kind of slow, so this was one thing that was relaunched in one of the Christmas like holiday sets that were released during Christmas that time. So mine isn't that old, but this is definitely like, it is still like very old. But if you still have this and your palette doesn't show any signs of like expiry, then I would still like say that this is a very beautiful cool tone palette to work with. It is more neutral leaning and there is some warmth to this one, so this isn't like the most cool tone palette you will ever find, but this is still mostly a cool tone palette, and I do say that the formulas, the mattes and shimmers still all work very beautifully, and I think this is just the classic value that this has at this point. Is like it's like, I think for many of us this also has a bit of a like nostalgic aspect to it, but still a good palette. If your palette hasn't expired, please, if you have, especially if you bought this when it first launched and you still have it, please check your palettes, because you shouldn't also use like expired makeup, especially on your eyes for eye infections. But if your palette is good, then dig this out, because it's definitely another great cool tone option. So the next palette has been a palette that has gotten quite mixed reviews. People either seem to really like this or dislike this. So this is the Tarte Big Ego palette, and I think I belong to a category that has actually liked this, and I'm really sorry about the packaging. So for me, why particularly I have liked this is because this has the more sort of mauvish, pinkish cool tones in it. That is why I have been particularly liking this quite a bit. Some of the shimmer formulas here are a bit like crumblier. I do say that particularly I think is the Achieve shade, for example, is something that is a bit messier to work with, but I have generally liked the tones. This is something, the Tarte formula generally, I think it's more suited for maybe someone who is a beginner in makeup. It's not going to be like super pigmented from the go, but I think for my preferences I have been able to like always get very pretty looks out of this one, and in my opinion I have felt that I have been able to like build up even some of the like deeper shades to the opaqueness that I like. But this is definitely, I'd say, one of the formulas that you either like or don't like, but for me at least this palette's color story and the shades have been something that I have enjoyed to work with. And there are like a few things you can do with this one, because there are like a bit of pinks, there's a bit of blue, and there's a bit of purple in this one, and then you have the neutral tones. But for me this is like a cool tone palette recommendation. Then the last of the high-end palettes, so I think this is, we did have to include one, that McGrath palette, and you probably aren't surprised if you've seen my like palette reviews that here. So this is the Divine Rose one from Pat McGrath, and this is one of the Mothership palettes. Is this the most of the cool toned palette that you've ever find? No, I do think that there might be the Mothership. I don't remember the name of it because I don't follow the Mothership releases anymore, because they all seem to be pink these days. But there is like one Mothership that has come out after this that I think is a bit even more cool toned than this one. But I especially think that if you like the more like kind of neutral kind of cool tones, then this is still a very good option to buy. The looks again are maybe more on the sort of sophisticated side, maybe a bit more like, I'd say, like office appropriate if there's like for example an custom code or something in your office that it has to be like, the makeup can't be like too bright, because I do know that there kind of are workplaces that is required. So I think for those kind of places this is a very good palette, and it's very like effortless and easy again to work with. The Pat McGrath mattes aren't the most like, how should I say, they aren't the most like easiest mattes to work with that I have ever tried. However, with this one, because the mattes are more neutral toned, I haven't had any issues with blending them, and all the like shimmer shades you have a bit more like subtle shimmers over here like this one, and then you have something more sparkle like this shade over here. But that was the last of the high-end ones, and let's now move to the indie. And also from indie there are, let's see, we have 4. So let's first go to a palette that I really was it was one of my, I think, favorite Oden eye releases from last year. So this is the, what is it, Jules and Gem. So this is there was 2 palettes in this series, and I got this one. And I think this actually has, this is like quite similar to the, I'd say that if you have the Tarte Big Ego, then this is that palette more like amped up in a sort of indie palette version, because again this has like This has a bit of blue, there are some mauve shades and there are some purple shades, and then you have a bit of neutrals with this one. And this is the like very, like I'd say quite the like very good Oden side palette quality. We all know that I wasn't a fan of the Christmas palettes that came out last year that were the pastel palettes. I actually gave those palettes another try in the beginning of this year, and I already decluttered those palettes because I felt that the formula quality between this one and the sort of Christmas palettes from last year that I have decluttered, it was like day and night. This is the very good Oden side quality where the mattes build very effortlessly, the shimmers are dimensional and there are like no issues, while with the Christmas palettes there were just like the mattes were like the one of the worst that I have tried from Oden side and from indie palettes in general for a long time. And also with the shimmers, some of the shimmers didn't have base to them, you really had to tap and tap them on to get any impact with them. With this one there are like none of the issues. So if you have been eyeing with this palette, because this is a permanent palette in the brand's collection, I would like recommend this 100%. This is a very beautiful cool tone palette with a bit like more with a bit more like oomph to it. Then something that I got from Unearthly Cosmetics. So this is a brand that I gave another try this year. This was a brand that I originally tried when Monolith Shop, which is a European indie brand retailer, they got a bunch of the like older Unearthly releases, and I got a few of the 9 pans, and with those one I wasn't a fan of, and I was thinking that what's the hype about. So this is the Dreamer palette, and this was sort of Unearthly's, I think this was their holiday palette sort of launch from the end of last year. And I have to say that I did have some issues with the mattes, like some of the more like I'd say the pink one for example, this I felt needed quite a lot of building, and then these few darker mattes I did feel that there were some like they did require a bit of work. However, what I did say as a conclusion for like review for this palette was that I do felt that the shimmers have definitely had an upgrade. They aren't like the most multi-chrome shimmers ever, but they have a beautiful sparkle to them. And like aside from a few issues, like I still have the like other matte shades working very, very well. And I do think that the sort of cool tone looks that I did create with this one are beautiful. And I altogether say that this is a very smart color story. This is one of those color stories that while you initially looked at, oh, there's kind of a lot going on with it, actually I have found that with all of the shades, they match quite well with each other, and you do get quite cohesive looks all together with this palette. So I did like want to give this credit, like give this palette credit from that. If you have been eyeing this one and this is still available to you, like I would still, despite having a few flaws, I would still like recommend this from Unearthly because it is beautiful color combination altogether. Then if you're looking for an all shimmer cool tone palette, so this is the Minka palette from Adept Cosmetics, and this isn't the best that Adept has ever produced. So with this one you will definitely have to be aware that these are very chunky shimmers. So if you're not a fan of chunky indie shimmers, don't buy this one. If you have sensitive eyes, I would also would not buy this. With this one, put a glitter glue or something underneath sort of on your lids before using these shades, and these are the shades that if you build them too much, the formula will start getting a bit crumbly, it will gather to your folds of your eyelids. So if you also have a lot of texture on your eyelids, I unfortunately have to say that this is not going to work for you, and this is just how the formula is like. However, if you want this sort of very super sparkly indie shimmer eyeshadow formula, then this Minka, it is still a good option. You just have to know what you're going into when you're wearing this. You will definitely get a lot of, I have gotten a lot of credits, praises when I have worn this, and people have been asking that, oh, what kind of shimmer eyeshadow you're wearing, because the shimmers are very impactful. You just have to be aware that there are few things you have to consider when working around with this one. Something that I will say is that actually some of the shimmers, they do actually look a bit samey once you get them to your eyes, so there isn't also a super lot of variety. But if you want a all around cool tone shimmer palette, this is still, I think, a very good option. Just use glitter glue or something, and if you have very sensitive lids, don't use this one. But if you don't have sensitivity issues on your eyes, then this is still a good option to get. Then the best for the last, I think that if you have seen any eyeshadow videos from me this year, you kind of knew this was coming. So this is the Cold Moon palette from Ensley. I couldn't leave this out of this video. So the name is Cold Moon, so that already says quite a lot. And with this one, why particularly this is good cool tone palette for me is that yes, there are a few gray shades in this one, but there are other sort of cool toned mattes. So we have a bit of pink here, there's a bit of like a traditional browns in here, and all the sort of shimmers, they have like, they're cool tone shimmers, but they're like different kind of cool tone shimmers. So we have a bit of pink leaning shimmers, there's a bit of blue, there's a bit of like a very light green shimmers. You do have a few like traditional silver shimmers. So this is like, I think that if you're looking for the ultimate cool tone palette on steroids, then I would buy this one. Just be aware that these are, the Ensley Rain palettes are like very expensive palettes, so this is maybe something that I would recommend, like, because I have now shown like other cool tone palettes. There are like from indie brands cool tone palettes and even from higher end brands cool tone palettes that you can get with less of money compared to this one. So I would recommend with this one, really considering that do you want to spend this much money on eyeshadow palette, because I spent like what, almost 90 euros. Almost, I think, 90 euros for this one. I got this one on Monolith Shop, which was very good because then I didn't have to pay like import fees instead of if I would have ordered this from straight from the US. But yeah, just maybe some consideration that we also in the formula is very beautiful. Even the more like chunkier looking shimmers, for example, this Aurora shade over here, even though they look chunky, they actually spread on the lids very nicely. I felt that I don't really need to use glitter glue or anything with this one. The formula is just like impeccable, and also the matte formula, very easy to work with, and the looks that I get with this every time are just very, very dimensional, very beautiful. But I would just that you really have to like this color story if you like spend that much money on these. But if you're looking for, like, as I said, a very good cool tone palette that has kind of everything that a cool tone lover would want, then I would recommend this one, and I'm a very happy owner of this one and the money that I have spent to it. But yeah, those were the sort of last of the cool toned palettes that I had. That was the sort of last cool tone palette that I have for this video. So I think there was quite a good variety in terms of like, I'm really sorry that we didn't have any drugstore options, but unfortunately, as I have sometimes discussed, the drugstore options in terms of eyeshadows are a bit limited, and the ones that seem to like are like very good that I can actually recommend, then those seem to be the more warm tone leaning ones. But I do think that in terms of the indie palettes there was like variety in terms of the price range, and even with the luxury ones there were like certainly palettes that aren't like in the sort of 100 euro mark and are also like around the 40-50 euro, so also something a bit more reasonably priced. But I would very much like to hear what are your sort of favorite cool tone palettes, or are you into cool tones altogether, or are you more of a warm toned kind of person? If you like this video, then push the like button, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from future videos. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog, on Instagram. I hope I will be seeing you in another video soon. Bye bye!